ora, and welcome everyone to today's webinar on UAV in the classroom. I will open with a karakia for our session. Mauri ora kia mātou, arahina mātou i a mātou mahi, ki mihia he huarahi mō te kaupapa o te mātou rangahangarau, āwhina atu, āwhina mai, te pou e here nei i a mātou, puie tākie. It's fantastic to have you joining us for today's webinar exploring the growing world of UAVs and drones in education. We're really fortunate to be joined by two fantastic presenters today. First, we have Claire Walton from Phoenix UAS. Claire has worked as a pilot in the manned aviation sector for more than 25 years and recently shifted focus towards the unmanned sector after conducting research for a master's degree into violence and aggression towards remotely piloted aircraft pilots and their ground crew. Claire currently works as a UAS consultant for Phoenix UAS, writing Part 102 expositions and conducting classroom training with new unmanned aircraft pilots. We're also joined by our fabulous TENS Council member, Jo Ray, who has practical experience using drones in primary education settings in Australia, alongside developing creative drone-free learning approaches for classrooms. Jo is passionate about engaging, community-connected learning experiences for primary and intermediate students. Together, Claire and Jo bring a fantastic mix of industry expertise and practical classroom application. And I know today's session will leave you inspired with new ideas and insights. Thanks again for joining us. Let's get started. So I will hand over to you.
Hi, can you see my screen? Great.
Yeah, all good.
So I'm Claire from Phoenix UAS. First of all, this webinar is not a formal course and it will not provide you with any qualification to fly unmanned aircraft. Instead, it's designed to give school teachers a general awareness of some of the key concepts and the responsibilities of flying a drone. So who is Phoenix UAS? So Phoenix UAS, we're a Part 141 training organisation. That certification means that we have approval from the Civil Aviation Authority to carry out flight crew training for unmanned aircraft and operational competency assessments. So there are many terms for an unmanned aircraft. The colloquial term that everyone would have used or heard would be drone. Today, that's what I will refer to unmanned aircraft as, but there are many other terms. Unmanned aircraft. So by this, I don't mean man. Unmanned does not mean without a man. It means without a human on board. So it's a presence rather than a gender. Otherwise, there is unmanned aerial vehicle. So that's again the drone. Unmanned aerial system, that's the pilot and the drone and the controller. Remotely piloted aircraft and remotely piloted aircraft system, similar. So recreationally, drones are used predominantly for videography or photography. Some people use drones for racing, recreational racing. Others use drones for fishing. They'll take the fishing line out past the surf, and it's quite successful. Professionally, the sky's the limit. There are so many professions now using drones as a tool within their businesses. So just on the left, we've got an agricultural drone. So in farming, drones are used for fertilizer, used for spraying. They can now be used to lift equipment or lift fencing. On the right, we have building washing. So instead of having people abseil down a tall building or difficult places to reach from the ground, we can send a drone up there now. Other uses in the farming industry might be mustering or using the drone to monitor livestock. We have some more professional drone uses. Um, Drones have been used to improve data within the construction industry. Roading, rail, or electricity lines are all monitored by drones. Other areas are monitoring cell phone towers, surveying companies are using drones, emergency services such as fire and emergency, or search and rescue if there's a lost animal or a lost person. We can use drones to search using thermal to find the person, or police are also using drones. Drones are also used in conservation for wildlife monitoring or coastal erosion mapping or water quality surveys. So there are many, many, these are just a small number of uses. There are many, many industries that are now using drones. So in New Zealand, it does not matter whether you buy your drone, where you buy your drone or the purpose you intend to use it for. You are operating under the Civil Aviation Rule Part 101, or you must be certificated under the Civil Aviation Rule Part 102 with the CAA. So by that I mean you could buy your drone online and you are still flying under the regulations. So Part 101, we don't have a commercial or recreational drone regulation. We have two regulations, and Part 101 is very prescriptive but very basic, and it's quite restrictive. So it's black and white. It tells us you must not do this or you can do this. Part 102, that is a case-by-case basis, and it's a risk-based assessment, and that goes through the Civil Aviation Authority. So why do we need to know about the aviation regulations? Basically, we are not alone. Very low-level traffic might be the rescue helicopter coming in to land on a road or coming to land in a sports field. We've got agricultural aircraft flying around very low level. We've got flight training aircraft flying around very low level. Paragliding or gliding or parachutists. We don't have a parachutist in the picture, but that's also very low level. And also banner flying is in that area where a drone may be flying. So there are a lot of traffic, even though you can't see that everyone else necessarily, they're all there. So who checks if we are complying with the regulations? So on the left is the Director of the Civil Aviation, on the right is the head of the New Zealand Police. However, and they will, those organisations will be involved if something really terrible happens. However, for the most part, the drone pilot, the person in the centre, is the one that must ensure that they're meeting the regulations. Now, why would the drone pilot care about meeting or following the regulations and the rules? So this is a accident that happened with a drone in 2024, in December 2024. A light drone, very similar size to what you could buy online or go into a shop in New Zealand and buy without any questions asked, went out of control and hit a young child in the face and the chest area, and that young child ended up with open heart surgery. So as we go through these rules, that's an example, although this was a drone light show, this accident, that's an example of what could happen if we do not comply with the regulations. So one of the most important regulations for drone pilots is to always give way to manned aircraft. So if you're flying in a park and you see a rescue helicopter hovering close by, or if you are flying on your own private farm and you see an agricultural aircraft flying close, you must always give way, regardless of where you are or what you're doing. We must always maintain a visual line of sight. So that means we must always be able to see our drone. You can have glasses on, but you cannot use binoculars to be able to see your drone. You also cannot use the drone screen to see your drone. You must be able to see the drone with your eyes. We must always fly below 400 feet above the ground. Something to be aware of here is that your control will not tell you how high you are above the ground. It will tell you how high you are above your takeoff point, and you must have a map and know how high the ground is and calculate when you're flying over terrain, different varying terrain. Consent is important. Now, things to think about with consent. First of all, this drone pilot to fly in this situation would have to have asked consent from the property owner. Can they fly over the property owner's land? This drone pilot would also have had to ask consent. Now, something to think about in this situation is, could these children legally have given consent for a drone to fly over the top of them? If the drone pilot asks the children's parents, do they have enough knowledge to give consent to fly over the top? So you would need to make sure that whoever you ask understands what they are consenting. If you do not have a qualification, you would and you wish to fly within 4 kilometres of any aerodrome, you must be flying shielded with a barrier. So what does that mean? So shielded means that you can fly up to 33 feet above the top of the shield. So in this picture, my shield would be my tree. So I can fly up to 33 feet above the top of the tree. And the picture's not quite right. The drone shouldn't be higher than the building. So the barrier is the buildings, and the barrier must be capable of arresting or stopping the drone from going to the runway. So part 101.12 says that we must have some airspace knowledge if we're going to go flying. If we wish to fly in controlled airspace, we can, as long as we are outside the 4 kilometres and we have air traffic control approval via the AirShare app. So this picture is, there's a school here. I've put an orange circle where the school is. There's actually a couple of schools in this picture, but the orange circle is one school. And I've put on the bottom picture where the school is on the aviation map. So this blue looks like a bow tie. That's the controlled airspace. This is just out of Tauranga, and it would be legal for teachers at this school to fly as long as they have contacted an air traffic controller at Tauranga via the AirShare app and have approval from the control tower. Unless you are the slide prior shielded with a barrier. If you were shielded with a barrier, you would not have to request permission. So, where do we find information on drones? I highly recommend everyone goes on to the Civil Aviation website and reads both the drone section and the rules, and I will go through that in a moment. We have two websites where you can find out information. The Air Force has designed a website called Flight Advisor. It's a free resource, and that will give you information on whether you are inside airspace, controlled airspace, or how far you are away from a aerodrome. AirShare, the AirShare app, is how you request permission to fly in controlled airspace. So we'll have a look. So this is the Civil Aviation Authority website. I highly recommend you read the information on the drones section to find out the rules or the regulations on learning to fly a drone. You will select rules and select the rules options, and then you'll scroll. Oh, sorry, civil aviation rules. And then you'll scroll down until you find part 101. These rules are really user-friendly. They're not, you don't need to be a lawyer to read the rules. So you will read part 101, and you will have access here to the regulation that governs flying drones. If you need to request permission to fly in controlled airspace, you'll use the AirShare app and log a flight under AirShare. So you'll tell them exactly where you wish to fly and log a flight, and then they will give you permission to fly if they're happy for you to fly. To know if you are in controlled airspace, or where you are close to a published aerodrome, you can use the Air Force's Flight Advisor app. It will show you the areas that are 4 kilometres from a published aerodrome will be shown in blue, and the airspace is also shown by lines. Oh. Are there any questions? I will send the links at the end of this.
Thank you. That was absolutely awesome, Claire. I have a few questions.
Yeah.
So I Googled and found that Phoenix UAS is in Fielding.
Yes.
If I was going to do my certification, what would be involved?
So Phoenix UAS travels throughout New Zealand, and we teach. We have regular training courses in Auckland and Christchurch, and then occasionally we'll go to Wanaka and Dunedin. Recently, we've had courses in Hastings and Napier. So we travel. So you would just have to let us know what would be involved. To do a Part 101 qualification, which gives you the qualification to fly within 4 kilometres, but more importantly, it gives you the knowledge to know where you are flying, to understand the airspace. That is a 1-day theory course in the classroom, and then the next day you will do a flight test.
Cool.
So
So,
that's 2 days I would allow for.
okay, and we've got two questions that have just come in, so the rest of my questions will have to wait. But I'll start with how much are the courses for 101?
Oh, I'll have to post that in the chat, the link,
Okay,
sorry. I teach the
okay,
courses, but I don't have anything to do with how much they are.
okay, cool. And the second question that's come in, um, I believe for FPV um, goggles, Googles, the pilot flies the drone and a second person must be present to maintain visual with the drone. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. You can. So that's someone who must know a little bit about drones.
Okay, yes. Um, and we can go back to my questions. Like quite often when you're getting certification of these kinds, there's a renewal cycle. So what's the renewal cycle for the 101?
So every 2 years, you'll do an operational competency check. So that's a test to see that your knowledge is still maintained, and a flight test with the drone.
Cool. So every 2 years it's that 2 day. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and I suppose if I was going to contact and be interested in a course and undertaking that 101, is there a minimum in terms of the number of people that you'd kind of want to be traveling for, or um, are there any other kind of logistical requirements?
Yes, there are minimums, but I would have to get you to
Okay.
contact. I teach the courses, but I
Yep.
don't have anything to do with the money side of things, and I'm really sorry. I
Oh
think
no,
it might
no.
be
So
six.
like
I
in
think it may
terms,
be 6 people, but I'm not 100% sure.
okay. No, well that makes sense, right? So my mind usually quite often jumps to logistics.
Yeah.
Um, and then here's one that probably gives it away. I'm a bit of a noob to this.
Mhm.
Um, right in one of your earlier slides, it was saying a whole heap of acronyms. And I got the remote piloted. I got that kind of like remote control. But what was the difference between UA, UAV, and UAS?
So generally with an S on the end, it's the system. So UAS or RPAS, it's the system. So that includes the drone, the pilot, and the controller. When we're
Okay.
talking about UAV, so unmanned aerial vehicle or unmanned aircraft or remotely piloted aircraft, that's just the aircraft.
Kapai. And last question. From your presentation, you were talking about being able to certify through CAP 101 and 102. Um,
Yes, so we've got two rules. If you were flying recreationally, you would fly under Part 101. If you are able to carry out your commercial operation, um, for example, below 400 feet above the ground and within visual line of sight, and you were happy to ask every property owner permission to fly over their property, then you would fly under Part 101. It's for people like electricity companies. It's not realistic for an electricity company to fly the length of New Zealand's power lines and have them asking every single property owner. So they are assessed by the Civil Aviation Authority as fit and proper, as reliable, as trustworthy, as safe. Their systems are safe, and they are assessed under Part 102, and then they are Part 102 certified. And that's what I wrote. Sorry, write. That's what I write. The exposition or the manual, which lists the procedures that the company is going to do to carry out that operation. So, for example, a agricultural aircraft, they're carrying very, very heavy loads. Um, so they need to be certified under Part 102. However, a real estate photographer may be able to carry out their work by maintaining visual line of sight and staying below 400 feet. And therefore, they may elect to fly under Part 101.
Oh, and sorry, I just spotted. How do you go about continuing with 102? Would it just be a case of emailing again?
Yep, there is quite a long process because it's a fairly involved process. And that's something that Phoenix UAS will support you through from start to finish.
Okay, so short answer, you're a good person to know.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Um, I would like to say thank you. Thank you a lot.
No problem.
We'll transition from this wonderfully clear overview, right? I needed that extra explanation about 102, but the wonderfully clear overview of compliance and regulations and how to be safe in the field. And you've got from our attendees as well, most appreciated. Thanks. And it's time to hand over to the wonderful Jo Ray. So I'll leave it to you, sweetie.
Kia ora, kia ora. Lovely to see you all today, and thank you, Claire. That was very interesting. Hopefully this works. Oh, it's not letting me share the sound. Oh.
Was the
Do you want me
button
to
not
share screen?
enabled?
It's grey.
Oh,
That's okay. It was
me
working
check.
before. Yeah.
1 second here.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Claire. I feel very inspired. I think that maybe I need to look into getting my 101. And I'm sure that lots of the children that I are now obsessed with drones after talking with them about it will end up considering that as a career when they're older.
Can you try again, please?
I'll share now.
Anything's
Yeah,
changed?
I can share it now. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm just going to talk about. I'm just going to talk about drones and UAV in the primary and intermediate classroom. All the resources that I share today will be on the TENS resource collection. So they will be coming soon, really exciting, so that you can start talking about drones with your tamariki in your area of New Zealand, Aotearoa. I promise you that your tamariki will be engaged, they will have the opportunity to innovate, they will feel inspired, and they will dream about the future, which is one of my favourite things to do. So I'm just going to circle back to a few years ago. I was teaching over in Australia at a private school where we had wonderful access to amazing technology. Now, I did a course through She Maps Australia. They come in with mini indoor drones. They teach you how to teach children with mini indoor drones. This is mostly done in a gym. Much to the PE teacher's dismay, I took over. There are little landing pads, as you can see, underneath the drone, and I earned my drone pilot badge. So this is where my obsession started. Not all of us are going to have indoor drones, but I thought I'd just sort of say a couple of tips, if you do, that I learned. When you're setting up the hall, they're very easily, like if a window is open and the wind is too strong, they'll sort of fly a little bit to the side. So windows shut. Thinking about safety, as Claire has already mentioned. What they suggested is that you set up an area, a flight zone and a pilot zone. You have a pilot, a co-pilot, and a safety checker. Those children are all wearing, have got their hair tied up, closed-toe shoes. They have a takeoff or landing pad on the far end of the flight zone. They might be wearing safety goggles as well. We show them a video about a YouTube clip where tomatoes are falling into a drone and just completely being moolied up. So teaching them that don't get near the drone, don't touch it if it is moving. And we have little tips like using music to help them to know when they're allowed to go into that flight zone, when they have to land their zone, and when they're allowed to start flying. So I have made a playlist with all sorts of songs. Come fly with me. Then we're allowed to ascend our drone. So a little bit of fun. The kids love it. Part of the program was a screen-free option was this book called Pippa and Droney. Pippa and Droney is all about a whole lot of scientists that use drones in their job. It's child speak. It is really interesting and fun. And the little drone has a little personality. Droney, obviously. So Pippa and Droney go and work with lots of different scientists and geospatial scientists and all sorts of people across Australia who have different jobs. It also down the side here has a website, so hopefully you can see this, but there is a Pippa and Droney website. So you can, this is basically a lesson, and obviously this is all about Australian, an Australian context, but it talks about going through, and then it goes to fly into the different areas where the different these are all female, so they are all female people who use drones for their job. So this is a photographer, and then it goes through with a little picture tips and all sorts of things straight from that expert. Then next we have a marine biologist, and it goes into this area. Now this one is really fun because her drone is used to collect whale snot, which is very cute. The kids love that one. So if you come here, this is a website where children can code. So they're going to get themselves into the position of helping an expert.
I'm glad you're here.
Program.
I need you and Droney to help me collect samples of whale snot.
Really?
Trust me, I'm a scientist. There's a whale over there. To get to it, you'll need Droney to move 3 spaces, then turn right, then move another 2 spaces. Let me show you the turn block for Droney's flight plan.
So then you would put your instructions in there, and then you would test it.
On my way. Ew, gross!
Well done. That's good fresh snot.
So you can see here how the kids love it. So coming back here, so I'm still in Australia, and we are also, something we did was tournament of drones. So we set up the hall with a whole load of obstacles, and they had to race their drones through the obstacles, so under, through a hoop, etc. I didn't get hit by a drone, which was very exciting, but you can see there I've got my hair tied up. You've got signs on the doors to stop people from coming in, so external people who haven't had the training to know how to fly a drone safely. It's very step by step. You start off by just taking off and landing, then taking off, doing a square shape, landing, taking off. You can do a flip. Now I noticed that the Tallow drone that we used here, the EDU app has been discontinued, and it seems that Co-Drones EDU is sort of the new thing that primary schools are using. So that's on Modern Teaching Aids if you're interested in getting those. So I also had the opportunity to go to the Locate conference, which was the most inspiring experience to date. I met so many amazing people doing so many amazing things with drones, and this particular lady really made my heart sing. In fact, I cried during her presentation. But her is Dr. Claire Moore, and she was a conservationist who uses drone technology to help track koalas, especially in relation to bushfires. So I was just being sort of bombarded by all these people who were just using drones for the most amazing things. When I got home, I was talking to a friend, and she shared that her husband has started using drones with heat sensors to check solar panels on roofs were all working in working order. They were just, every time I was talking to someone, they were saying how they were now using a drone in their line of work. Back home in New Zealand, my friend Blair had started, he's a keen spear fisherman, and he also grows finger limes at his Matakana property, and he started using them to capture what he sees, when he's out in the ocean, and being able to share that with a wider world, which has been pretty inspiring. He got quite a few of the Northland floods as well, which was pretty cool. He's also a volunteer fireman. What doesn't he do? But he uses them in all lines of his different areas of passion, but also in his lines of work. So it was kind of cool seeing how he had gone from just being a regular real estate agent to doing all sorts of other things, spraying for weeds and all sorts. So let's fast forward. I'm back in New Zealand. I have come back after maternity leave. I have no drones, and I don't have a big budget, right? So, but I also want to express that I also think that in New Zealand, we surely have people doing amazing things with drones as well. So I wanted to think, how can I make this meaningful experience for my tamariki without the fancy technology? How can I recreate these inspiring resources for a New Zealand context? Who can I connect with to give my tamariki a real world connection? So first of all, we started off talking about what we already know about drones, and they started sharing about the appearance. One of their parents uses them in film, and she knew quite a lot about it and could share with the class. In fact, the dad's sending me some videos of a new type of drone that they're testing for their filming, and sharing all sorts of amazing stories of his experience using drones in his job. There was also like a building inspector who had just started using it to be able to get up on the roof and see all the different areas. But I think the biggest thing that I noticed was that people in general think about a drone, they think about the quadcopter, right? But in research, there are so many different types of drone. And as Claire said, an unmanned aerial vehicle is sort of what encompasses a drone. So let's talk about, I'm talking specifically about a quadcopter. So I got my friend who prints things out in aluminium to make these little mini quadcopters. And we talked about the controls of how you control it. We talked about throttle, we talked about yaw, pitch, and we used our little machines, or our little pretend machines, to, so I put my finger on the pretend picture on the board, and we talked about ascending and descending, using our throttle, pitching forward and backwards, yawing and rolling, and the different movements that it could make. And then as a class, we swarmed our drones all together. So our little pretend drones, our little model drones. So that was a pretty cool experience. And the kids had to really use their mahi-tahi to get the drones all moving in the same direction at the same time. Next, we looked at my little drone, and we passed it round, and we talked about what we noticed. I can see a camera. I can see that the rotors, one is slanted one is slanted the other way. I can see that it's got a little protector around it. I can see that there's a battery hole. I can see there's a camera. I can see there's some sort of receptor. There's a charging port. So they sort of came up with those things themselves. Next, they had to build their own UAV out of some of the tech resources we had. So it had to include one moving rotor, and the battery had to be contained in some way. A lot of them were pretty funny because when they got their rotors going around, they could feel the wind, but their battery was so heavy that they sort of were like, Joe, we need lighter batteries. This isn't going to fly. And I was kind of like, it's not going to fly anyway. But anyway, we've got it. There were definitely some misconceptions that sort of came out from this, and that sort of could create a bit of like a wonder wall with lots of questions about flight and how it all works. So then let's start looking at our New Zealand innovators. So I'm unsure whether the Maui 6.3 drone is still flying, but it's definitely worth looking at with your children because it's an amazing example of conservation in New Zealand.
About 3 years ago, Tane, Willie and I got together and decided we wanted to get some platform, a drone platform, to be able to survey our coastal waters. For us, it was about moving technology forward to actually help conservation in our marine space. And Maui dolphins, that I've worked on for a few decades now, are probably the most urgent conservation problem we have in New Zealand's oceans. It's the world's rarest dolphin. Our last estimate was 63 animals over 1 year of age. So we really don't know anything about these dolphins outside of summertime. The drone will be used to cover a lot more of their potential range, summer and winter, and more frequently, so we could go every month and survey. At the moment, we're restricted to about 3 weeks every 5 years.
So essentially the drone allows us to not just find them and map them, but also follow them. So we can really start to understand, their behaviours out in the ocean. It flies between 140 and 160 k's an hour. It'll fly for 6 hours on its own. On top of that, a camera. We've got 50 times zoom on board. We've got 50k range from the base station, so we can see full HD video. And because we can fly for such a long period of time and we can actually track them and follow them, then we can really understand where they're going and how they move and who they hang out with.
This particular project is innovation at its best. Using artificial intelligence and a drone, we're able to monitor them all year round, and all of that data will then be input back in to help manage fisheries, manage pollution, manage all the other human threats that impact on the Maui dolphin.
The other thing is that because the drone can actually spot the Maui dolphin and identify individuals using artificial intelligence, we're going to learn so much more from the information that's going to come from that. I think it's fantastic that commercial fishing companies and NGOs like WWF and the government can come together around a topic that we all feel very passionate about and work together to deliver something like the drone project to save the Maui dolphins.
We've been working on this for a long time. It's nice to have a grant from MPI that allows us to purchase the drone, and partnering with WWF, Sanford, Moana and MPI itself means that we can actually finally bring this to life, get it going.
Everybody wants to save the Maui dolphin, and so what a great opportunity we've got to have the World Wildlife Fund, the Ministry for Primary Industries and industry alongside each other, collaborating to do a really great thing to look after this very endangered dolphin species. I'm very excited about that.
We have a mandate to make sure that we have a certain set of values, kaitiaki being one of them, which is us looking after tangaroa. And I think by bringing everyone together, it will without doubt help us have a better outcome.
In the coming year, we want to make sure that the platform works and show that others can use it to survey coastal New Zealand waters for hectares and Maui dolphins initially, but using it for other marine things as well. I think this is going to really leap New Zealand research forward, in the marine space.
Okay, so pretty inspiring stuff. So back in the classroom, what do we do? So a really cool thing you can do on Canva is you can upload a map of your local area. You can use your coordinates, overlay your coordinates over it, and then you can use the image splitter to print it. So you can see here, if you look closely, that that is possibly 16 A3 sheets that I have duct tape at the back. Then I've got my pink sandal, which is a rare pink whale. I love to use my David Attenborough voice. And our little drone you can see is stuck on top of my robot. You don't need a robot. You could just hop the robot along the squares. But if you've got an area where, so this is our school over here, and from our school, we want to fly our drone to take photos of this rare pink dolphin, or rare pink whale, sorry, and then fly back to that spot and land in the same place. So we got the robot to make the taking off sound. We got it to move across the sky, then across, make a clicking sound to take a photo, and then fly back again. So that's one idea that was really cool. The kids loved it. And I guess you can make all sorts of, I guess, like maybe there was a big gust of wind and suddenly you had to change your flight path. You know, you could really act out all sorts of scenarios related to what you're learning about. My junior students use Scratch Junior. So you can see here that the little droney is taking off from its black spot, and it's going to take photos of the rare white piranha snake. And here the droney is taking off to take photos of the rare golden spinning bird. So the kids actually loved using a David Attenborough voice on their voice recordings as well. So that was on Scratch Junior, lots of fun. And then my senior students used Octo Studio, which is another app you can use on the iPad. And I gave them a list of different scenarios where drones might be used. And they imported their map into the app, and then they sort of acted out a specific sort of like drone flying scenario, which was lots of fun. And they presented their work to the class, and honestly there were so many different ideas. It just sort of as you know, Claire said, the breadth of how this technology is used across so many different industries is just crazy. So now we're meeting our next innovator. So this is Alice. She also, like Claire, teaches people how to fly UAV. She also is working as part of a team who is creating drone shows in New Zealand, but they have invented a new type of drone called Whetū, which means star in Māori. They've both the hardware and the software is custom built in New Zealand. The really cool thing about it is that it has a safety feature that pilots can take manual control in case of issues, such as GPS signal loss, so that they can take control. I know in Australia, they have that obviously instead of fireworks displays, they have drone displays quite a lot at festivals. But this it's kind of like an extra safety feature that's really exciting. So she sent us some videos of them testing it. She's the tester. She sends it back to her team and tells them, you know, what's working, what's not, how could we edit this drone, how can we change it? And I love that they're testing it in a wool shed and making all the changes. So Kiwi. The kids then designed their own light drone show to represent what they love, and we used the RGB codes to tell the drone what color that you wanted it to flash. So they planned out how many drones they'd need to make their shape in the sky, and they planned out their RGB color as well. So linking in the digital technologies here. This is Gisela. She is in the survey and spatial industry. She has been working here and overseas for 19 years. She is a very cool lady. And one of my favorite things that she says at the bottom here, an interesting moment, sometimes when she's flying her drone, army helicopters are zooming above us, dropping practice targets into the water. It's pretty cool. That makes our job of mapping the area from the sky very tricky. We have to be super careful to stay safe and not get in the way. And she's got a picture of her flying her drone from a boat in a hard-to-get area. So pretty cool. These are going to be available in the TENS resource store. So linking to that, SheMaps has actually got a free resource, My Map, My World. So you can go to the SheMaps, and SheMaps have said that I am welcome to share it with New Zealand teachers. It's a free resource, and you can go into your school, you can get aerial footage, you might invite a local drone pilot to get that footage for you in a safe way, obviously, following all the laws that Claire talked about. But you can, for one thing, you can see how much shade is in your school. I know that there's been heaps of talk about shade in playgrounds, so this might be a really cool thing to do with your schools. Now that resource is for prep to year 10. So obviously the Australian system works differently and would have to align that with our curriculum. But it's definitely worth looking at. So thinking about innovators, I recently on LinkedIn saw a very cool lady called Emma Ryan who posted that she had been conducting some pre-cyclone coastal monitoring with her son. So pretty cool to have her son along doing the job with her, but I thought that it's a pretty cool example of thinking about in your community who you could reach out to and how your kids could come along for real life STEM experience. Now, I guess in this conversation, it kind of links back to Claire having the ethical debate around, drones being a help or a hinder. Some people have got big opinions, but I think it's definitely worth having discussions about scattering some ethical debates. What happens when people don't respect the rules that Claire spoke about, and what happens if you cause damage with a UAV? So I think it's really important to have those conversations as well. Yeah, so that's the end of my talk. Any questions?
Hi. Well, again, thank you. Thank you very much, Jo. I'm whale snot. You had me from whale snot. But beyond not getting hit, which would have been a great surprise,
Yes.
what most surprised you about when working with primary school students with UAV?
Yeah, what most surprised me, I think that just every single person was engaged. You know how often you're teaching I was teaching digital technology solely, and there were always like a group of kids who were just like, I'm not about this, or not engaged. It wasn't their thing. There wasn't one kid. Everybody was like, I want to know more about how I could use drones in my career, and I want to fly drones. When can we fly them next? So that was really cool. There were a few kids like anxiety, because you do talk about like if your hair isn't tied up and it gets caught in your hair. So some of the kids were a little bit nervous, and I just say, just go get your hat and put it on backwards, and to protect yourself, or those sorts of things. There were a few little anxieties because you are talking about safety quite a lot. Yeah.
And so obviously I'm going to flash that share your feedback, because this has been absolutely fantabulous. I found there's been so many physical resources and approaches and strategies that I could just take into my classroom tomorrow. I am going to ask the lovely case studies of Alice Schwanchi-Yo and Gisela Ripple. What was the bigger resource that those two case studies came from?
So I wrote those. So when I was doing the learning with my kids, I reached out to UAV NZ, hence why I've met some of the people who Claire works with. And I just thought, oh my gosh, there are so many cool New Zealanders doing cool things, and I want New Zealand kids to know about all the opportunities. I started sort of writing these stories about these people who I had heard about through UAV NZ. And I just thought they just have to be shared. So I'm really excited that they're going to be shared through the TENS resource. And I think something too is like, if you are doing this in your school and you meet a really cool person doing something really cool with drones, like share it with TENS, and we could add it to the resource when it ends up coming out, Yeah.
Okay. It looks absolutely wonderful already. It looks professional. So I missed that little part of your explanation. All right. I think maybe a final question before we go into karakia would be just in terms of barriers. Because I think there might be kayako out there who would be very interested and the potential of teaching and learning with UAV, how or what words of encouragement would you have to help them take their first steps?
Yeah, I mean, I guess dive in. I think that there's lots of things you can do without drones. And if you can invite somebody from your community in to, fly a drone on the field in a safe way, or be part of something, field work that's going on, the kids can be part of that, would be a really cool way to do it without spending lots of money on mini drones. But, I know that you can get sort of class set of them on modern teaching aids. That's an option as well. If you have the money, cool, go for it. But use the SheMaps resources and the Co-Drones EDU resources as well. But reach out to SheMaps in Australia. And I don't know if there's anyone else doing anything cool for primary schools and intermediates in New Zealand, but reach out to them and ask them for help. Yeah.
Very cool. And so again, thank you. Thank you to you both, Joe and Claire. We'll close off our session for this evening after I do the quick little plug for next Wednesday webinar, which will be on the 24th of June, 4 to 5 p.m. And we'll be exploring Edge VR in classrooms with Dr. Paul Unsworth and Colleen O'Rourke. And so a sneak preview, it's going to reframe VR from passive viewing to an active technology outcome. So thank you. Thank you to everyone who's been here today. And thank you to our presenters. Thank you for the questions. Me kara kia tātou. Kia mātou katoa. Ko mutu mātou ia mātou mahi. Ia mātou kaupapa hoki. Arahina mātou, kia kawe mātou ia mātou haipapa, kia whakatapua mātou ki ngā kaupapa me ngā mea e whakapono. Manaaki tia mai mātou.